Hello everybody, welcome to a new video. Today we're going to be looking at addiction, and we're actually taking a sidestep from the usual journey videos that I'm doing, because these are basically subjects that I also want to cover, but they're not necessarily part of the journey series that I'm doing. This video, of course, is about addiction, and that's something which I've struggled with myself in the past. And it's definitely a subject that I want to get my teeth into, because there's a lot to unpack, there's a lot to share, a lot to discuss. So, going back to about 2005, I came out of foster care. I'd been in foster care since 1998. And in 2005, I ran away from foster care. I went back to live with my mum, which I'd been wanting for years. And what I didn't expect was what would happen when I went back, because I was a proper geek. You know, I was like computers, and I didn't really go out very much. And when I did, I kind of just did my own thing. I wasn't really, you know, like a hoodlum or anything like that. I was a bit of a geek, basically, a bit of a nerd. And then when I went back to live with my mum, I'd say after about 6 to 8 months of living with her, I went out to the shop one day, you know, quite a normal occurrence. It's not like the first time I've been to the shop, but on this particular occasion, I bumped into a few people, and some of them I'd known from before I went into foster care. And so obviously, you know, catching up and stuff like that. And they said, "Oh, why don't you come out? Why don't you hang out with us?" You know, they're all just like chilling on the rec, the village green, you know, whatever you want to call it. And they're like, "You should come out. You should hang out with us more. You know, where have you been?" I was like, "Yeah, all right. Yeah, sounds good. You know, I'll give it a go one day, you know." And obviously, I think I just started school again. So I went back to live with my mum in about April. And then obviously just about September, October, this happened. And so just started talking to them again in school. And then it came to me leaving school one day, coming home on the school bus, and just sort of tagged along with them. They were, "Oh yeah, come out with us for a bit." So we all like went out and went chilling for a bit and stuff like that. And it just went from there, really. It was like we were hanging out most days after school, started smoking. I hadn't started drinking yet or anything like that. I think it was probably about 4 or 5 months I was hanging out with them. So it was after Christmas. So we're in early 2006 now. And then one day they were like, "Oh, you should come out drinking with us," because I hadn't been staying out late or anything. I'd just been staying out for a few hours after school. "You should come out drinking." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know, you know, never really got drunk before. I've had like a few little drinks on Christmas, you know, when your mum or whatever gives you a little drink and that." I was like, "Yeah, I haven't really, so I don't know." And then I decided, you know what, actually, yeah, let's go for it. So I went home, and I think it was either my mum or my sister had this bottle of Lambrini. You remember Lambrini, yeah? And a bottle of Carling, or can of Carling. It's put me off Carling for life, let's just say that. So I went out, took these drinks out, and got pretty pissed. And you know, it was quite a good night. You know, it was a good laugh. Made some good friends, you know, built some good friendships. And it's stuff that you do, you know. I don't regret this, because I think this is a normal part of growing up for a lot of people. I was about 15 at the time. And back then, you know, it was quite a normal thing. A lot of my peers that I went to school with, they, you know, weren't a stranger to drinking. And then at some point along the line, after school, one day I was out, you know, we were all hanging out, and one of my mates rolled up a spliff. And I was like, "Oh, I really want to try some of that." And he turned around, I'll never forget. And this was one of my best friends. He turned around to me and he said, I don't want to give you this. I was like, oh, why not? Why not? You know, I didn't really realise what he was trying to say. I was like, come on, as you do. And he was like, no, I don't want to give it to you because you're gonna get hooked, and you're gonna, you know, you're not gonna be able to put it down, and it's gonna be my fault. And I think he was very aware, because we were obviously quite close friends by this point. He knew obviously that I hadn't smoked it before, and so he was obviously quite aware that he was going to initiate something bigger than just, you know, passing me a joint. This was going to lead to more, you know, as they say, cannabis is a gateway drug. It's very true. And so in the end, he was like, he gave in because I was persistently asking him, and he gave in, and he gave me some. I smoked some, and I was like, you know, you never forget your first time when you smoke weed. It's probably the best experience of all when you do smoke weed. Everything after that is kind of mediocre. You know, for me, it was always the same. You know, you get stoned, you feel, you know, monged out. But the first time it was like, wow, it was all new. It was like, what's going on? What's happening to my body? You know, what am I feeling? And it was like this new experience. It's fresh, you know, and it was exciting, you know, for want of a better term. It was at the time quite exciting for me. And so they kind of stayed like that for quite a while. You know, I didn't touch anything harder for quite a while. I want to say at least a year, you know, somewhere around there, 10 months to a year. I just smoked weed. But I was smoking more and more of it. And obviously I didn't have a job at the time. So it was mostly that I was using money, like lunch money or whatever, saving it up, or borrowing money off my mum or whatever. And then that's when the lying started, and the drink kind of came along with it as well, because it was like a bottle of White Lightning, White Star was like £1.7. I'll never forget, it was always £1.7. I don't know why. But that was like, you know, Mum, can I get some money, borrow some money to get some chips from the chippy, you know. And I used to come up with all kinds of stuff. I used to, you know, she knew I was drinking as well at one point, and I would kind of twist it to make it sound, you know, like, oh, we're grown up, we're responsible, because we all thought we was like adults back then, you know, young adults. Oh yeah, we don't go out in the street, we go around my mate's house, we chill, we drink. And that wasn't always necessarily true. We was out a lot, you know, drinking, parks, streets. We did drink around people's houses, you know. A lot of my friends' parents, they knew that we were drinking, and they would, you know, let us drink around theirs, because they would rather that we drank inside the houses than out on the street a lot of the time. So it kind of went along like that for a while. And I was like trying to, obviously, weed was £10 for a bag, and it was one of those things where you wanted to be included. Like, my mates would be drinking and smoking, you know, around their house, around their garage or whatever, and you wanted to be involved. So it was like, oh, I want to get a bag, you know. So I would ask my mum if I could borrow some money to get a bag. I wouldn't tell her I was getting a bag, obviously. I'd tell her that it was like for chips or just something else, you know. Or if I'd been out for the day, this is when it got really bad, and she'd give me her bank card. And if I'd been out for the day, say with my mates in town, I'd be thinking ahead, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'll get a tenner, get some weed later on. And it kind of went on like that for quite a while. And then I'd say like after about a year, then I was introduced to ketamine, and that was like when it took a big step, and it was a totally different experience. I'm not gonna lie, ketamine used to mess me up really bad. I used to be out of body, and it's quite a common effect of ketamine, because it's obviously a horse tranquilizer. So for a human body, it knocks you for 6. And I would be well and truly out of body. There was times, one particular time I remember, this was going forward a little bit, jumping forward. After we had moved to Worthing, I was staying in touch with my friends back in the village where we were. And one day, one of my mates come and pick me up because he had started driving, so he had a car. So he come pick me up from my house in Worthing. It was about 20-minute drive. He come pick me up, and we went to this place, this car park, and we was all chilling out. And I did a little line of ketamine, and we were hanging out, and it felt like we were there for like 2 hours, at least 2 hours. And then he was like, "Oh, I've got to go now. I'll take you back to Worthing." So he took me back, dropped me off, and then I went inside. And I thought, look, obviously like 3 hours had gone past, including driving there and driving back, and the time we were there. I looked at the clock and I was like, that can't be right. Only an hour had gone past. So you think 20 minutes there, 20 minutes back, that's 40 minutes. So 20 minutes felt like 2 hours. I couldn't get my head right, even to this day. The fact that something can do that to you and make you feel so out of body and out of mind. Sometimes you couldn't even see your own body. It was weird. It was like you was a floating head. Anyway, reason I'm explaining all this is like how bad something can affect you, and yet you still keep going back for more. So that's what it was. It was just the thought of like being involved in something. It was just to do something, it's like to have those experiences with people and feel like part of a group. So it all kind of intertwined. The addiction for me was being addicted to creating those moments. Does that make sense? Like being involved and having those times. And it was kind of like without the drugs, it was those things wouldn't happen, because a lot of the people, the things that we did back then was revolved around drugs. And it was like, that was the foundation for creating those social situations. So that's one of the key reasons why I kept going back. And it was getting worse. So we're going back again, back to when I was living in Ashington before I moved to Worthing. I was still about 15, 16 at this time. And then it moved on to cocaine. Someone introduced me to coke, and then I started wanting that as well. And all this time I was obviously still smoking the weed. And so that was like my lifestyle. I tried to get away from it. I would try and go back to, I was like living two lives. I was living this life as like a nerd, I was still doing other stuff on my computer. I was still talking to people. I was still on forums for, games that I was playing at the time and stuff like that. I was still, living that life, because that was kind of like my bounce back. Every time I got myself into a situation where I was messed up and I was having this regret, I would go back to that. And that would be my escape. And I was quite literally living two lives parallel, and neither life knew about the other life, and kept them both completely separate. But the other life, being a nerd and on the right path, it wasn't enough. It didn't have the thrill. It was like nurturing. It was, homely and whatever. But when I was at home, all it took was one ring. My phone would be on my desk, and I'd see, my mate's name on my phone, and I would try as well. Sometimes I would be like, no, not today. And it was, it's like, oh, come on. And they can hear them all in the background. Come on, Dave. And it's like, oh, it's that typical thing, peer pressure. And I was, I can't put it down. I want to go out. I want to go out. And there were a lot of times where I'd go out and I'd think to myself, like, this isn't what I think it is. This isn't what I feel like it is in my head when I'm away from it. And then that would be the key that would take me back to, obviously, the other life. Because I'd be like, well, this is quite boring, really. It's not really all it's cracked up to be in my head. But for some reason, I could never shake that notion. It was always there. It was always kind of this whole thing that is this big thing, you know, it's exciting, it's thrilling. I want to do it. I want to be a part of it. Call it FOMO if you want, you know, all kinds of different, you know, mixture of feelings, desires. So that kind of, that kept it going for a long time. When I moved to Worthing, as I was saying, that was a common thing that my mate would come pick me up, or I'd get the bus. Weekends, I would go down and go to the pub with them. When I turned 18, we'd all go down the pub. I'd get a taxi home. There were periods, obviously, when I was working, when I had a job, and I was paying for it myself. There was a long period, about 9 months, when I had a good job, and I was doing it. I was kind of doing it right. I was going to work during the week, and in the weekend, I was playing, and that's kind of, you know, the way to do it. If you're going to do it, that is the way to do it. And I maintained that for quite a while. You know, I managed to keep that discipline. And then I got my car, and it got worse. When I passed my test, so I've been in this job for 9 months, I passed my driving test, I got a car. And then the freedom took over. And it was kind of like the freedom that I could drive to a mate's house. I could, you know, I was staying out all night with my mates. I was spending more time there. I wasn't necessarily, you know, smoking and drinking, but I was using the car to obviously socialize more with them. So that was keeping me close to them. And it was, you know, drawing me further away from that opportunity of being able to start a new life in Worthing, because I was still holding on to my old life, and that bond with these friends was getting stronger. We'd been through quite a lot. We lost a friend to drugs. He unfortunately, sadly, died in a road traffic accident because he was intoxicated, and he didn't know where he was, basically, and he walked out onto a dual carriageway and sadly passed away. That was kind of like a turning point for a lot of my friends. First, they went through a phase where, you know, they got harder on it, the alcohol, because obviously the grief. But then a lot of them started to wake up to it and realize that drugs weren't a game anymore. And it's not necessarily that we gave up and we quit at that point, but it was kind of like, it's not, we're not doing it to be, you know, we're not kids anymore. We're not doing it to be silly. We're doing it, you know, kind of like we're not out on the streets anymore, that sort of thing, and little things. So it kind of felt like we were growing up and being mature, but we weren't at the same time. And I think that there was a lot of masking going on there, because it was like thinking that we were, you know, stepping up and being more mature, but in reality we weren't, because we were still doing it, just in different ways. So I got my car and was going from there and working. A lot of my wages were going on weed, drugs, alcohol, drinking. And that was my life. Rather than spending my money on things that, you know, I wanted to do, hobbies and things like that, and pretty much went on, you know, either petrol for my car, food, drugs and alcohol. And by this point, I'd done it for so long that was my routine. And a lot of people say, you can't get addicted to weed, which is true. It's not in the same way as, you get addicted to heroin and things where you need, methadone to come off of it. However, in the sense that my life had become, smoking weed and drinking and coke and whatever else, it was hard to take myself away from it. So it is basically an addiction, because I was putting things, pushing things aside, and my values for my own family, my mum, I was, taking money from her. I was convincing myself, I was in denial. I was convincing myself that I was borrowing it or whatever, and all kinds of excuses and reasons. And so this kind of went on for quite a while now. So we're in about 2009 now. So about 3 years in, smoking weed. And it really is now a day-to-day thing, pretty much every day now. It's just a normal part of life, I didn't really see any other way. There's we all had shared interests, me and this group. Like I say, we'd become so close. We was like family. Because when you go through something like grief together, you become really close. It is like a second family. And that's how we all saw each other, which kind of made it even harder to walk away from, because not only did I see them like that, but they saw me like that. So the reciprocation was bouncing back and forth. And then you throw the drugs in the mix and the social times and everything and the bonding. It was a mess. It was just, there was a very little hope of getting out of it, because I couldn't stay away. Kept going back every day, stuck in the same loop. Anytime that I was trying to get away, I had no willpower. In my mind, there wasn't anything else. It's still the same as going back to those days, going home, playing on my computer, whatever. Anytime I tried to do something else, it was boring. It wasn't enough. It wasn't the same. It wasn't thrilling, They just, didn't satisfy me. So I really couldn't get off of it. I really couldn't stay away. The addiction wasn't just, I wouldn't say either it was just the weed, the cannabis. It was everything else involved as well. It was an addiction to that life. It wasn't just a case of giving up, stopping weed, but it was a case of giving up my friends. It just wasn't going to happen. So it carried on. Long story short, that carried on. And then 2013 came around. So we're now 6 to 7 years in. I'll say 7 years. And then I met the mother of my kids, basically. And I was with her for about a year, and then found out, obviously, having my first child. And she gave me an ultimatum and said, it's either the weed or I'm not going to let you see your kids. And I thought to myself at this point, like, I've stooped low in my life, but this is one thing, I can't stoop that low. I can't choose drugs over my kids. It's just, I couldn't, I'm not built like that, I guess. So this is where I started to try and give up. And I was in a job at the time. I had a good job, salary, pension. And they wanted to put me forward for a forklift license because I was working in a warehouse as a storesman. And there was all kinds of thing about me working up to become a goods in manager. I'd have my own building, department I'd be in charge of. And they wanted to get me a forklift license so that I could unload the lorries and put the pallets into the goods in. And they said, obviously, you're going to be drug tested. And by this point, I had cut down a lot. I had stopped smoking, but I was still dabbling. I was still going back to it. I was still trying a little bit here and there. This is before I found out that I was having my first kid. I was still, bouncing back and forth, and it came at the same time. I found out that obviously I was having my firstborn, and then this opportunity came up. So it's kind of like everything was pointing in that favour. And it's like, right, this is what I've got to do now. And so I became really basically a massive, massive arsehole. Spoiled is, like a spoilt brat sort of thing, I'd say, because it was like I wasn't getting what I wanted. And I just got so angry trying to tear myself away from that life. And every part of me was fighting it. And I was blaming the mother of my kids. I was blaming her and saying, just all kinds of irrational thoughts and actions. But I did. I managed to give it up. In the end, I managed to come off of it. And I still kept wanting to. I still kept saying, I'm gonna get some. I'm gonna go back to it, but I wouldn't. It was kind of like, I think I needed that feeling of control, because it felt like I was being controlled. So I felt like I needed to be in control. And for me, giving up wasn't being in control, because it wasn't my idea. It had come, out of this place of, circumstances. It didn't feel like I was in control. And this is where a lot of the anger stemmed from. So it was a constant fight. And this went on for almost a year, till my, he was born, my eldest. And when he was born, I think by that point, I'd done a lot of growing up. I came to accept it. I'd left all those friends behind because they were unsupportive, and it showed me a lot. It revealed a lot to me about who they were and what they wanted from me. And it's like they didn't want to know anymore. Once you took the drugs out of the equation and everything, and they didn't want to know. So all of that stuff about being family and being, close, tight-knit, was all kind of vapor. It was paper thin. So that was it. Then I changed my life. I was a different person. Then we're in about 2014 now. I became a delivery driver, van driver, delivering, all over the south. I was proud. I turned my life around. I've come so far from who I was, where a lot of the time I didn't have a job. I was in and out of jobs. But, now I'm a van driver. I'm doing my own schedules and stuff like that. And, I've got a responsible role. And that was life-changing, and it opened my eyes up. And I've realised there's so much more to life than drugs and, shit like that. So now here we are, 12 years on from all of that. And I've never, had more clarity than I do now. I have different, issues now. I'm not saying my life is perfect. I have different things that stress me out now, finances and things like that, bills, kids, because fast forwarding 10 years on from, giving up, and in 2024, in a strange turn of events, the mother of my kids was unable to have the kids anymore. Social services stepped in because she wasn't fit to look after them. So my kids ended up coming to live with me. So it's kind of, this whole full circle of them living with her and, you know, or us being in that situation where she was obviously telling me to buck my ideas up and sort myself out. And so I did that. And then 10 years down the line, I ended up taking on my kids and being a full-time dad to them. So, you know, life has a strange way. So it was hard, but I got there in the end. And I can say to anybody that the first step is obviously the denial, because you will make every excuse up under the sun. Like, this is my life, this is who I am, this is what I need that, take the edge off, and all these things that will be controlling you. You won't be in control. You'll be telling yourself you're in control, but in reality, you're being controlled by your own addiction. And if you can't walk away from something, you know, this applies to anything: gambling, eating, just anything that where it becomes a point where no matter how much it destroys, you know, your family, your social life, your finances, your life in general, and you still make excuses for something to keep that in your life, that's addiction. Anything, you know, you don't have to be a crackhead. You don't have to be an alcoholic. You can be addicted to anything when you make excuses for it, even though it is having a detrimental, negative effect on your life. So the first step is to admit the denial and admit you have a problem. And then once you've done that, then the best thing you can do is to talk to as many people as you can. Not people that you're doing it with, because they will tell you, they will make excuses for you. They're like the anti, you know, they are trying to keep that alive, trying to keep that fueled. So don't talk to the people, whatever you're doing, whether it's gambling, drinking, you know, drugs. You need to talk to someone in an outside circle, whether that's family or friends, colleagues. If it's safe to do so, obviously, if you're at risk of losing your job because of whatever reason, don't, because you're going to make things worse for yourself. But if you know that you want to get off or whatever it is and get out of that situation, then take control of it and speak to someone. That's the most important thing, because when it's kind of like any problem or issue that you have, and I always say this to everyone, any problem that you've got inside your head, all the while it's in your head, it's controlling you. You're not in control of it because you haven't made it real yet. It's in your head, so it's not real. The minute you talk to somebody about it out loud, and it's out there in the world, then it's real, and it's a real problem to work on. It's not just a thought in your head. There's a big key difference. So talking to someone will help you to get grounded and to feel like you have a handle on it. And that person as well will be able to keep you on the right track, because you know now that they obviously know your situation, what's going on. They have a window into your life. And it's not that they're controlling you or anything like that, because you will feel like if they turn around to you and, you know, you're whatever, they catch you in a situation, and they give you that look or whatever, and they try and give you words of advice, you will, chances are, turn against them and don't tell me what to do. You can't control me. Who are you trying to get involved in what I'm doing? And all of that, because it's somebody trying to stop you from doing the thing that you really want to do. And that is natural. That's going to happen. It's never, ever going to be a case of someone saying that and you turn around going, do you know what? You're right. It's very rarely going to be like that. And until you're further down the line, once you've obviously gone through the emotions and everything, and then you start to get a handle on it and someone says it and you'll be like, no, we keep doing this over and over again. You're right. I've got to stop doing this. You will eventually get to that point, but don't expect to at first. Your body will, reject it if somebody tries to. It's like medicine, and your body, when you don't like, not a lot of people like the taste of medicine. There's some medicine, but anyway, you will, take that medicine to make yourself feel better, and you're that's disgusting. That's what the person who's trying to help you, they are the medicine. And you don't like it. So once you've done that, once you've spoken to someone, the key thing is right at this point is, if it is something that's heavy drugs like heroin or anything like that, then you really do need to get professional help. While it is admirable to try and do it on your own, you're very highly likely to relapse and you're very highly likely to cause yourself harm. So there's no beating around the bush. You need to get professional help, whether that's rehab, therapy, or anything like that. You do need to get professional help. Or something like being an alcoholic, going to a meeting like an AA meeting, things like that. That's kind of covering the bases where you're talking to other people, and they don't necessarily have to be friends, because when you go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, they are, people that you probably won't have met, but you're still talking to people, and they are people who are going through the same situation. It's strength in numbers. You're getting that, as well as getting it out there and making it more real, and that is going to give yourself a solid platform to work from, to grow and build from. And that's what you really want. You want to make this, you want a good solid start, because just telling yourself I'm going to stop, if I could count the amount of times I said, right, that's it. I used to go through this loop where I would get really, really high. I would be so mashed. I'd be completely out of it. And I'd just be dazed out, monging. And then I'd be, I don't want this anymore. I hate feeling like this. Oh, why do I do this to myself? I'm giving up. Tomorrow, that's it. I'm stopping. I'm not doing this anymore. I won't get. And it would be this loop going back to those days of being a nerd. I just want to go back to my old life. I want to get out of this life. I want to get my money together. I want to work hard, get my head down. And the next day I would wake up and it'd be like someone's just hit a reset button. And I'd be like, actually, I really feel like having a bag today. I really feel like, skinning up a joint. It's a nice sunny day. It's summer. It'd be this loop. And I couldn't make it up. Like I say, the amount of times, over, 300, 400 times, because it happens several times a week. So we're talking about hundreds of times I went through that, and I never learned. You'd think that, you went through this the other day, so why are you doing it again? Because it was night and day. The way I felt when I was intoxicated or high was completely different. My brain was wired completely different to how I felt when I was sober. And that is kind of the way it is. Where any addiction is basically rewiring your brain, and all the signals in your brain are completely different. So things that make you happy don't make you happy, and vice versa. And it really is, on your own, it really is difficult to get out of that, to escape that. And the only way that you can do it is with help. You really got to make sure you go. Don't beat around the bush. Don't tell yourself, don't try and be the hero. I can do this on my own. You want to get it done, get it done. So seek professional help. Make sure you do. And they will get you on the right track. Anything that you need, you know, if you're on heroin, you know, methadone and things like that. And they will keep up on you, on your back, you know. They will make sure that you're sticking to what you're doing. And it's all about getting the right mindset as well. You've got to be in the right frame of mind to want to do it. You've got to keep yourself in that frame of mind. Everything around you as well. You basically restructuring your life to be that person. You're not just trying to give up whatever it is. You are rebuilding your life to become the person that you visualize yourself to be. That's becoming your reality. So you're changing your whole way of thinking to become that person. And that is why you really do need that help, that support. So take it, go out there, seek it, take the support, and get yourself that right mindset where you believe in yourself and you know exactly where it is you want to be, what it is you want to achieve, and you know that life is no good for you. That you know full well, right, that life does me no favors. I don't want that. I want this life because this is the life that I've built for myself. It's like where I am now. I wouldn't want to go back to that life now. Even if, you know, sometimes when it is a sunny day, I still do. There's still those triggers in your brain. They never go away. So when the sun comes out, you know, I've got a bit of music on or whatever, have a couple of beers. There is always that part of me. And this is why it's so important to get all the help and support that you can and to be strong. You need to be strong because it's always there. 12 years on, and there's still those little flickers. They're not enough because I've built so much up for my life now. I've got my own house, you know, I've got a job, I've got a car, I've got my kids, I've got all this nice stuff. I've got PS5s, Xboxes and whatever. And I wouldn't want to go back to that because everything about that life is a negative opposite of what I have now. And all the while I had that stuff back then, I didn't have what I have now. And so that is my mindset. My mindset is I am who I am now, therefore I don't want to be that person anymore. And make sure that you keep that support network up. Keep it. That is your rock, your foundation. Those people around you are the people who are going to keep you rooted. And if they're good friends, they will check up on you. If they're good, you know, good people, they will check up on you. And when you see them, they will make sure, you know, that you are keeping up. And if they are disappointed in you when you go back, if you go back to that life, then I'm sorry, but you've only got yourself to blame. Because they're trying to do the right thing by you. They're trying to help you. And the only person you've got to be disappointed in is yourself. So don't do it. Now, contrary to that, the most important thing now, I will say, is that you need to empower yourself. So do the complete opposite. Don't be disappointed in yourself. Don't make yourself disappointed. Empower yourself. Remind yourself of how well you're doing, what a great job you're doing, turning your life around, not giving in, not being weak, building up strong willpower. And that will help you with everything. Willpower. If you've got strong willpower, that will help with anything. If someone asks you to do something that you don't want to do, or buy something, you know, salespeople, if you've got a strong willpower, That is across the board. So you will be able to say no. If you can say no, then you can say no to anything, because that's willpower. You've got to have willpower in order to be able to do all those things across the board. So the first and foremost thing you need to do is be able to build your strength up, be able to take that self-control back. Don't let, gambling, drugs, alcohol, addiction control you, because you are in control. This is your life. You decide your fate. Don't let something decide your fate for you. Take control of your life and build healthy habits. Do things, hobbies, fitness, training, sports, even going to museums, educating yourself. Do positive things. And then the more you do that, it's repetition. The more that you do positive things, you will replace the repetition, the negative repetition, which is addiction. Whatever it is you're addicted to, replace that. And it might seem hard at first, but anytime it seems hard to take yourself away and do something else, remember why you're doing it. You're doing it because you don't want to be that person anymore. You're doing it because you're taking control of your life. You might get up and be like, I really don't want to go to a museum today. I'd rather sit and get a bag and, have a good time. Well, don't. You don't even need to feel good about going to the museum. Go to the museum or go to the park or whatever, sports, the gym, whatever, play football. Do that because it's the right thing to do. Have some discipline, have some self-control, and do the right thing by yourself. Whether it feels right or not, whether it feels good, it doesn't need to feel good. It doesn't need to feel exciting. You're doing it because that's what's right by you. And so retrain your brain to do what's right by you, not to do what feels good, but what's right by you. And that's true discipline, because things aren't always, happy, go lally, do lally. Things aren't always, sunshine and rainbows or whatever. Sometimes things are shit. Sometimes the sky is grey, but we get on with it. The reason we get on with it is because we do that what's right by ourselves and the people we love and the people who care about us and our future. Don't fuck up your future. Don't fuck up your family, your life. And then eventually you will feel good about it. And the reason you will feel good about it is because you took the right choice. You did what didn't feel right at the time, what didn't feel good, but you did it because it was the right thing to do. Now you imagine the empowerment you're going to feel eventually when you look back and you think, wow, I did something that wasn't necessarily for fun or for enjoyment, but I did it because I had to. And trust me, you will feel the best you could ever feel about yourself. You'll feel so proud of yourself, and that will be like locking a door, bolting up that door. That's it. The past is behind me. This is who I am now. If you'd asked me 12 years ago whether I could see this now, I would have said no. I would have probably thought, well, I wouldn't even be able to picture 12 years in the future back then. I'll be thinking, this is all in my head. This ain't, I was making so many excuses for myself back then that I didn't even visualize. I didn't, it wasn't picture perfect. It wasn't idealistic. I went into it blind. And the only reason I went into it was because of the support, I had from people around me, family, and that push as well. A lot of it was that push. And I'm not necessarily going to say that my ex supported me. There was a lot of stuff after that, and it turned out that she was controlling. So it's circumstantial that, you know, I did that, and I'm proud of myself, but I would never turn around and, you know, give her the credit for it, because it turns out in the end that she just wanted to control me, the way I see it, because of the stuff that happened after that. So that's my thing though. All that matters to me is that I did what was right by me then, and the people that were around me that supported me, my family, my mum, God bless her soul, she was there. She knew when I'd stopped smoking, and she knew, you know, I didn't even really have to tell her. I did tell her eventually, that, you know, I've left that behind me now, and she was really proud of me. And that was one of the reasons why I said I'll never go back to it now. After all I put her through with the money and everything like that, stressing her out, I wouldn't want to go back to it now. But that's, you know, that's what's made me who I am today, and I'm proud of that. I made the right choice, and I turned my life around. And now, you know, here I am trying to make myself a better person. I would never have been here. If I'd carried on that track, who knows where I would have been. Thank you for watching another video. I hope this video has helped you today. If there is anything that you want to share or comment, or any experiences you want to tell me about, or any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I appreciate your ideas and everything, all the contributions you guys have made so far. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps with the channel and the growth and moving forward. And I just genuinely really appreciate it.